Welcome back to Talking with Ted as we continue our series of Flora for Hikers, focusing on high elevation trails, hikes. If you want to hike in Arizona when it's warm, you have to hike high. And we have a series on spring wildflowers. That's generally desert stuff down low, so you can check those out with the plants included there. These are the ones that are up high, okay? So we're going to start out with, and again, focusing on the family. And we've talked about the importance of color or the unimportance of color with regard to relationships. And again, families are the groups, and you recognize families, you will be well on your way to knowing what is it that you're looking at. All right, so the first one we're going to talk about, shooting stars. Now, as I have, I think, mentioned before, common names may not be that meaningful with regard to relationships like sage. There's a lot of things that you wouldn't think of are related to sage, but they have that name, okay? So, shooting stars, though, the common name is descriptive, and so you will imagine the shooting star. There's these stamens sticking out like a nose cone, and the petals, instead of, normally, the petals kind of cup around the stamens and the pistil, but these stream back like, they're shooting past, like a rocket, would leave a trail, or a star would leave a trail, a meteor, coming through the atmosphere. So kind of pinkish. Now the color we're talking about this time is red, but red isn't always red. Sometimes it's pink, sometimes it's orangish, and so it's less specific. It has a gradation than some of the other colors that we've included. Okay, white is white, although we had some cream in there, and yellow is yellow. So, but red can vary orange to pink. Okay, shooting stars are kind of pinkish. They have a little yellow band, a circle before the stamens come out there in the nose cone. All right, so primrose family. Okay, the leaves are often opposite or whorled. Okay, generally simple. Okay, the symmetry. You look at that face on, and it's radially symmetrical. I'm going to bring out my illustration, my bubble wrap. Okay, this is radially symmetrical. So you cut it any way, you got equal halves. Okay, thank you, Phil, for giving me the bubble wrap to keep me safe on the trail. Okay, that's the kind of symmetry that this one has. The petals are mostly united into this structure with them streaming back, the lobes streaming back. Again, we talked about how many parts? 5 lobes. Okay, so primrose family, shooting stars, the genus Dodecapion. Next, similarly, as far as the name, this one is called skyrockets, and this is a pure red one, long tubular, and then you look at the face of it, and it has these lobes sticking out with some speckles in the face, and it does look like a firecracker just blew up in your face, and all these things shoot out that way. So skyrockets is a good name, and again, it has this tube, so like it's a rocket with this thing blowing up, on the face. Okay, a long stalk. This one is in the phlox family, and it will have these flowers all along this long elongated stalk sticking off, and they'll kind of hang down a little bit. And remember, this is all about pollination, and so hummingbirds generally like red, and they have a long tongue, and they stick that in there to get the pollen out of this long tube. They're made for each other. Okay, so mostly the leaves are alternate, and they are widespread across the country, but very few species. It's not a big family, only 265 species concentrated in our area. So this is the place to learn about the phlox family, the genus Ipomopsis. Okay, all right, skyrockets, very glorious, like a rocket you would think. Okay, all right. The next one, we've mentioned the figwort family before, and this next one, Indian paintbrush, is in that family. Now this one's kind of weird in that, like members of that family, the symmetry is usually bilateral. The leaves are usually opposite, and they're usually simple. Big family, thousands of species worldwide, all over the place. But this one, the name again, is descriptive, Indian paintbrush. It looks like somebody took this paintbrush and dipped it in red paint, and where you could then paint it. So it has all these little bracts sticking out of it like the bristles on a brush, okay? So this one happens to be edible, slightly with a caveat, because if there is selenium in the soil, it could concentrate the selenium and then it could be toxic. So you're not gonna probably eat enough that it would matter anyway. I've never had a problem with it. Of course, I don't eat bunches of it. It tastes slightly sweet, but the red part that looks like these bristles on the brush are not the flowers. Those are just some sterile, what we call bracts, that are around the flower. The little tiny tubular thing with the pollen and the nectar in it, again, to attract hummingbirds for the most part, to get in there and get the food out of it, okay? Deserts to mountains. I saw a ton of this on Mount Charleston. Everywhere you'll see Indian paintbrush, okay? Usually meadows, open spots, high elevation, edges of forest, okay? Not a shady spot plant, but out in the sun, okay? Castanea is the genus. All right, the next family, the next plant is from the carnation family, also called the pink family. Now this one is, I just really like it. It's you look at it, the symmetry, okay, is pretty regular, round, but it has these funky lobes that just stick out like somebody with their hair, like they put their finger in a socket and this red, ding, all these hairs flying out of their head, okay? So the number of lobes is not very regular, like 5 or 4, it's just like a bunch of them, okay? But the lobes themselves are 5, but then they have little segments coming off of that, okay? The leaves are opposite, simple, and about 2,100 species, concentrated temperate areas around the world, very bold, very bright. I've seen this a lot in Chiricahua Mountains and up on the Mogollon Rim, where you'll have edges of forest, campion, catchfly campion sometimes called. In the herbage, sometimes it's sticky, like it would catch a fly, so it's kind of got some glandular elements to the leaves, okay? Opposite, simple, okay? Beautiful. All right, the next family, big, huge. You've got to recognize this family, the mustard family, and this is really a cool family because it has very recognizable flower parts. 4 petals, which is less common, and they're always in a cross shape, which is why it's called cruciform, which is why it's called the crucifery, the mustard family, okay? The fruits on it too, they're either going to be called siliques or silicles, and you really need to have flowers and fruits, and they usually occur together. These are annual plants that don't reproduce really quickly. So long skinny capsules that are dry for the siliques, and short little round fat things, bubbles almost. Sometimes they're shaped like balls, sometimes they're shaped like a little notch, like a purse, shepherd's purse, bladder pod, those kind of things are mustards, okay? This one is called wallflower, pine forest, Pinal Mountains, like south of Globe, where I've seen this one, and similar places, Sky Islands, and rather tall, 3-4 feet tall, bunches of flowers, very bright. Sometimes they're yellow, but this one that I have a picture of here is orange, and so we put it in this particular group. But the family is important to know. Early wildflowers, especially in the desert, often are mustards, and you'll see those fruits on there, long, skinny, short, round, and okay, that's it. And look for those petals cross-shaped. One last thing about that is a distinctive characteristic, the stamens, which you're probably going to have to get maybe a little hand lens. I just saw a Sherlock Holmes movie recently where he's, a movie from 1959, year I was born, with his hand lens to examine things, okay? So we don't see that in too many modern movies, but that would be helpful in something like this where you could look at the stamens, because the stamens have a distinctive pattern as well. It's called tetradenimous, okay? So they have 4 long and 2 short stamens. The pattern is always consistent. I'm a literacy tutor and helping people with English, and you focus on the patterns. A lot of words in English don't follow the phonetic sounding rules, but it'll still be in a pattern, okay? And so you learn the pattern and you got it, at least to the family level, and then you go from there. Pretty big family worldwide. Next, the rose family. And the plant I have here is red cinquefoil. I saw this in New Mexico in the Gila Wilderness for the first time, and I've seen it up in Grapevine Canyon, kind of more wet canyony spots, shaded a lot. The leaves on this whole family are very variable, and big family, you know, from Arizona rose, for example, which is pink, so that's would be in this kind of group too. Lots of times divided, lots of times alternate leaves, but this particular one, red, it's like such a blood red, deep, intense color. The size of the petal is only probably about 1 inch across, but the color, you don't mistake it for something else. Okay, there are some other cinquefoils that are yellow and so forth, but this red cinquefoil, the genus Potentella, is blood red and intensely beautiful. Okay, hugely important family, as you might expect, and probably know, you know, roses, ornamentals, but other plums, peaches, apricots, pears, all those are in the rose family, incredibly important and useful family of plants. Okay, one more, this is it. Snapdragon family once again. Similar to skyrocket, the skyrocket, you remember, had the regular symmetry. The penstemon has irregular symmetry. Okay, tubular, like the skyrocket, red, long stalk, but the symmetry is not different, and it's got the 2 lobes above, 3 below, and it's called beard tongue because it looks like there's fuzz on its tongue because one of the stamens is sterile. Okay, so usually it has an open throat to the tube. The monkey flower is kind of closed up because of this bilabiate. It kind of like the lips are, you know, squished together. But this is more open, like a tunnel looking into the throat of the flower. Okay, so penstemon. There are purple and ones as well, bluish, but very common are red. Leaves usually opposite. Sometimes the leaves at the base of the stalk will be united and they'll actually clasp together as the stalk continues up. Very large family, thousands of species, worldwide distribution. And so I would reiterate knowing the family. And if you can recognize sunflower family, pea family, cactus, rose, this snapdragon family, tobacco, mustard, and grass, you will know 75 or 80%. You'll recognize that high proportion of plants on your next hike, and if you know it's one of the few hundred figworts, for example, you've eliminated thousands, 3,500,000 species that are elsewise in the state. So this is the most reliable, the fastest way to eliminate plants that aren't what you're looking at, and that's what you want to know is what are you looking at. Okay, we have 1 color to go. We'll get to that next time. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the trail. Keep hiking.